All right. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the world's most exciting classroom. My name is Joe Grabowski, and I'll be your host for today. As you know from our last event, we are in the Galapagos. So we have covered over 10,000 nautical miles. We left Plymouth in the UK in August. We've crossed the Atlantic Ocean. We've done pretty much a circumnavigation of South America, and we are now in the Galapagos. I think most of you know the Galapagos plays a pretty special part in the voyage of the Beagle. It is where Charles Darwin saw many amazing things on those islands, also known as the Enchanted Isles, and it helped him form his theory of natural selection, so to explain how evolution is happening. So that's where the ship is right now the Oosterschelde is anchored just off of San Cristobal, which is the second oldest island in the Galapagos. I'm going to share my screen really quickly here, and let's take a look at where we are, and then we will get right into the event. So what should be coming up for you now? Here's our handy map, DARWIN200.com. You can find some really cool photos and video, and of course, this handy map to see where we are, where we've been in real time. So if we back out a little bit, you can see that the ship was in Salinas, which is a little beach town off the coast of Ecuador. Here, the ship had to be cleaned, so professionally cleaned. The hull had to be scraped of barnacles and any other marine life that might have been there. After it was certified, we could sail roughly 1,000 kilometers across this stretch of the Pacific Ocean to the Galapagos. If I zoom in a little bit closer here, you can see that there is this collection of islands. You can see the youngest island, Fernandina, and then down here is the oldest island, Espanola. And here we are anchored just off the coast of San Cristobal, which is the second oldest island in the Galapagos. Now, if you don't know, the Galapagos are volcanically formed. It is kind of a conveyor belt. So there's a hot spot underneath Fernandina, and Isabella and Fernandina are still volcanically active, these two islands. So, in fact, right now, there were eruptions on Fernandina a couple weeks ago. So it wasn't that long ago that Fernandina was erupting and new land was being created. But the conveyor belt moves to the east and closer to South America. So as you get to these islands in the middle, this is Santiago, this is Santa Cruz, where the ship will be heading next. You will find that they are more established, lots of vegetation and animals living on them. And then when you get here to San Cristobal and Espanola, you will find that they are starting to erode and sink back into the ocean. And if we could follow this trail here back towards South America, you would see a few islands of the Galapagos which have formed, moved along the conveyor belt, and sunk back below the surface of the ocean. So they had their time in the sun, and after millions of years have ended up back below the waves. So that is where we are right now. We have lots to do today. We are going to have a live connection from the ship. So one of our camera operators, Rodri, is going to join us. He's going to have his Darwin Leader with us. So right now we have 4 Darwin Leaders in the field working on different projects. And Rodri was with the Darwin Leader who was looking at the marine iguanas. So we're going to talk a lot about marine iguanas today. We'll have a Kahoot quiz about them. We've got some cool video clips. We'll talk to Rodri. We'll talk to our Darwin Leader, and we'll learn all about the project they were working on and the marine iguanas. We have a new experiment. We have the answer to our growing blue crystals experiment from a couple weeks ago. And then we have a new curiosity of the week. We have a special video sent to us from the National Marine Aquarium in Plymouth. We're going to have a Kahoot quiz. As per usual, we have a lot to get to, so let's get right into it. If you are a classroom joining us today, use the chat sidebar, say hello. I can see from Hamilton, Ontario, we have Miss Coburn's class saying hello. I know backstage we've got our Linwood crew, our grade 6s joining us from actually just down the street from where I am, not too far away. So use that chat sidebar. Don't be shy. Send in any questions you have as we start working through our event. So we're going to do things in a little bit different order today because the ship isn't going to join us until 9:30 Eastern, so about 20 minutes from now. So we're going to look at some of our experiments. We are going to look at our special video from the National Marine Aquarium as we make our way towards the ship joining us live. So I think what we'll do first is start with a little video from the National Marine Aquarium in Plymouth. They've been great partners. We've had them live. We had a send-off party with them in Plymouth They have done all kinds of great resources for us. And the one I chose for today is about sea turtles. And I chose that for a reason. When you visit the Galapagos, if you jump into the water, you are going to find a ton of green sea turtles. Why are there so many green sea turtles? Well, there is a lot of nutrients in the water. The Galapagos Islands are nutrient-rich, cold waters. So along the ocean floor, that is where the nutrients sink, something called marine snow. So when plankton and animals and phytoplankton, things like that die, it sinks to the bottom. And those nutrients are in the deep, deep cold water. And they move around the bottom of the ocean in a current. Well, that current eventually hits the Galapagos Islands, which are kind of like these sea mounts, these volcanic mounts rising from the ocean floor. That nutrient-rich water hits those sea mounts and it's pushed up to the top around the islands, which is why we have these cold, nutrient-rich waters. Lots of green algae grows there, seagrass, and it's perfect for those green sea turtles. So there's been times that I've been snorkeling in the Galapagos and I've looked around me and saw 10, 20, even 30 green sea turtles. Sometimes if you're in a shallow bay on a warm day, you can find 7 or 8 of them just sitting on the sandy bottom and warming up in the sun. So just a little in the shallow water, just kind of staying warm. So green sea turtles are all over the Galapagos. So we're going to look at a little video about sea turtles from the National Marine Aquarium. Let's load that video up and let's see what they sent us for today.
Hello again everyone, my name is Georgia and we are here at the Ocean Conservation Trust, which is based at the National Marine Aquarium in Plymouth in the UK. We are at the top of our Atlantic Ocean tank and today we are going to be feeding our green sea turtle called Friday. Now you might have seen a previous section that we have done for the World's Most Exciting Classroom episodes where we've done some target training and we've spoken about how our biologists here train our sharks and raise to feed from a target. But today we are going to be feeding our turtle instead. So I am joined by one of our biologists who is called Katie, and Katie is going to be showing us how she can feed Friday, but also how she is training Friday to do something a little bit different. So we are just going to watch Katie whilst Friday enters this separate area of the tank. And then we're going to ask Katie a few questions about the training and about the feeding as it happens. So this is a separate area of the Atlantic tank, which is called the acclimation tank. Now, animals sometimes come in here, maybe if they're new to the aquarium, if they're going to be going into this tank eventually to get them used to the animals and the temperature of the water, etc. But when it is feeding time, or when the divers go in this tank to clean the tank, then Friday, our green sea turtle who has just entered, he comes into this separate area of the tank, and we'll explain the reasons for that in a minute. So, Katie has just started feeding Friday. So as Katie's doing that, I'm just going to ask you a couple of questions and you can answer whenever you are available. So Katie, could you explain to us what it is that you're feeding Friday today?
Today, Friday has some lettuce. He also has some cauliflower and some cucumber and some peppers.
Lovely. So might sound a little bit strange that is Friday's diet. Now this is very different to what Friday would eat in the wild. So as a green sea turtle, when Friday was younger, if he was in the wild, he would eat things like some jellyfish sometimes and maybe seagrass at other times. So he would have been an omnivore, meaning he eats a mixture of vegetables or plants and also meat, so other animals. Now Friday we reckon he's about mid-30s. He came from a different aquarium in the UK. He came from Bournemouth Aquarium, so we don't know exactly how old he is, but we reckon mid-30s. And if he was in the wild now as an adult green sea turtle, Friday would eat things like seagrass, so he would be a herbivore at this age. And to make sure that Friday isn't missing out on other vitamins in his diet that he would get in the wild, he also has something called a gel diet, which Katie has kind of pasted onto some of his vegetables to make sure he gets those extra vitamins. So you might be wondering, what exactly is Katie doing here? So we've got this structure in the tank, which Katie is using to train Friday. Katie, could you explain a little bit more about what this is all about?
Yeah, so this is called a turtle inspection device, and we have bought it because every now and then when the vet comes, Friday needs to be taken out to be weighed, or we need to take his bloods to make sure he's healthy. So to do that, he needs to be lifted out the water. And he is very big and very heavy, as you can see, so it's quite a hard thing to do. Now, usually we have to get a load of divers in the water with him, which is a lot of hard work for the team, and it involves a lot of people. And it's a little bit stressful for Friday because he doesn't really know what's going on and he doesn't really like it. So what I'm doing is I'm training him to use this inspection device, which is basically like a sling. So at the moment I'm getting him used to being in it, comfortable with it, he's not scared of it. And he's learning that if he comes in it, he's going to get a nice reward, like some vegetables. And then each stage, I'm bringing it up a bit more until it starts taking his weight. And so he gets used to that it's going to lift him out. And in the end, he will be able to swim into it happily. We'll lift him up, do what we need to do, place him back in the water. He'll get a big reward of a load of vegetables, maybe even a cheeky bit of squid. And then we're happy and he's happy.
Lovely stuff. So you've also got a red target in your hand. Can you explain what that is for?
Yeah, this target, this red triangle shape, is Friday's target. So when he sees this, he knows that that's where he needs to go. He's really good at following it. If we need to get him out of the big tank into this little tank, he'll come over.
Perfect. So as I mentioned earlier, you might have seen our previous section on how we target train our sharks and our rays. So they have slightly different targets, but this red triangle shaped target is Friday's one. And how do you think this is going to help the team, this kind of training? How is this going to benefit the biologist team and the other animals in the future?
It's not going to only make it less stressful for the husbandry team, it's also going to make it a lot less stressful for Friday. It'll mean that it's done very safely, that he's happy, that we can do it quickly, and hopefully we can use this sort of training for other animals around the aquarium. And I'm going to publish the results of what I do with Friday, and hopefully other aquariums around the UK might be able to do the same thing with their turtles.
That is super cool. Now, you might have heard before about Friday being a little bit cheeky. So I mentioned earlier that we feed Friday in this separate area called the acclimation tank, and Friday also has to come in here when the divers go into the tank to do cleaning. Now, that's because Friday is very, very cheeky. When the sharks are normally being fed, if Friday was in the main area of the tank, he's been known to go around and bop them on the head, causing them to accidentally spit out their food, which he will then hoover up. And when the divers go in the tank, at his previous aquarium in Bournemouth, Friday was trained with a yellow target, so he really likes the colour yellow. He likes the yellow air tanks on the divers' backs, which means he will often follow them around, and he's been known to bite some of the divers on their bottoms. So because of that, Friday is now fed in this separate area of the tank, and he goes in here during the dives so that everyone can get on with their lives and Friday can stay safe. So, have you had any slight issues with Friday's cheekiness with this training?
I definitely have. At the start of the video, you might have seen that when he comes in here, he came straight over to bite the sling. It's a new object, a novel object for him, and he doesn't have hands like us where we'd touch it to investigate it and see what it is. So he's been using his mouth to have an investigate, see what's going on, which means he spends a lot of his time trying to bite it, which is not good for me, but Look at him, he's being good now. He prefers the veg over the sling.
That is brilliant. Thank you very much, Katie. We're going to let Friday finish his afternoon snack, but then in a moment, Friday might have a little shell scrub, so we'll watch that in a minute. But whilst Friday is finishing his dinner, I'm going to show you some other artefacts. So I'm just going to pop this back on here. So we've got a couple of artefacts that have come from other turtles. So Friday is a green sea turtle, but there are 6 other species of sea turtle, the largest one being the leatherback turtle, but lots of turtles, they've got a hard shell. So this is an artefact. This is a turtle shell that has come from a green sea turtle. It's quite shiny. That's because it's got a protective coating on it to preserve it. And it's quite a dark green colour compared to Friday. Now that's because Friday, he doesn't eat a lot of seagrass. Like we've seen, his diet is more varied compared to what it would be in the wild. That can be a main reason for his difference in colour. But this is also from a green sea turtle, and if we turn it around, we can see the inside of it. So running down the middle here, I wonder if anyone knows what the name of this bone is called. So this is our turtle's spine, and it's made up of separate bones called vertebrae. And then along here, we've got some other bones. I wonder if anyone at home knows what they might be called. Have a little think. Those are the turtle's ribs. So you can see that the spine and the ribs are completely attached. They are fused to the turtle shell. These parts in between, these are also made of bone, called dermal bone. And then, if we turn the shell to the side, we can see how thick it is. So again, we've got a thick layer of bone here. And on the top, on the front of the shell, these are called scutes. So a scute is a separate kind of part that fuses together on top of the shell for extra protection. And this is made of a material called keratin. So you've got keratin in your body as well. If you have a look at your fingernails or if you have a look at your hair, that is also made of keratin. And this gives the shell a little bit of extra protection, makes it nice and strong to help protect our turtles. Now, down here we've got some other artifacts. Yeah? So, this is a section from our another turtle shell, and here you can see just how thick it is. This again is made of bone. Ooh.
Camera crisis, guys, sorry.
There we go. So this is made of bone. You can see how porous it is, and this means the turtle shell is relatively light. And then on top, this is where the scutes would be. So I've got a separate little scute here, and again, this is the part that is made of keratin, like your fingernails and your hair. It's pretty thin, this one, but it just provides an extra little layer of protection, and it's almost like a turtle swims around with a big toenail on their back. Super, super gross. Now, I think Friday is just getting ready for his shell scrub. Katie, are you ready? Yeah, nice. So we'll pan back over to see Friday. He's finished his dinner now, but he's getting ready for a little scrub. Now, as we've just seen with our turtle shell artifacts, their shells are completely attached to the turtle's skeleton and to their body. So as Katie is scrubbing Friday's shell, he can feel that. It will feel like a nice sensation. He'll be enjoying that, and it also keeps his shell nice and clean. So we'll remove any build-up on the outside of his shell. We've also got this light here. So this is a UV light, which will also contribute towards Friday's health, keeping him nice and happy and healthy. And he's obviously very much enjoying his scrub. He's expressed that to Katie by getting her very wet. Now, we do lots of other things in the aquarium to keep our animals nice and happy, and this is called enrichment. So in science, enrichment is something that our biologists can do to keep our turtles and our other animals nice and happy in the aquarium. So for Friday, he has that target training, he has his shell scrub, and he's also got some other kind of games that he can have food hidden inside to keep him engaged and give him that enrichment. Now, turtles around the globe, unfortunately, are threatened. So 6 out of the 7 species of sea turtle we know are threatened, and the last species there isn't as much data on. So they can be threatened for a number of reasons. The main threats include plastic pollution. So sometimes turtles might mistake bits of plastic for bits of food, accidentally eat it or get tangled up in it. They might also eat tiny little bits of plastic which can build up in their bodies, and that is called bioaccumulation. Another big threat to sea turtles is to do with fishing. So there's something called bycatch, which is where unfortunately animals like turtles or dolphins might accidentally get caught in fishing nets and unfortunately die from that as well. And the last kind of biggest threat is climate change. So when sea turtles lay their eggs, the female sea turtles will actually go back to the beach where they were born. They use the magnetic fields of the earth to navigate back to their beach, and then they'll lay a clutch of eggs in the sand in a nest. Now, because of climate change, sea levels are rising, and if these eggs are buried very close to the shoreline, then that can cause the nest to become flooded if the sea level is rising too quickly. And another threat from climate change towards turtles is to do with which gender their eggs hatch at. So with sea turtle eggs, their gender of the eggs when they hatch is highly determined by the temperature. So if it is cooler temperatures, more of the turtle eggs will be born as males. If it is much hotter temperatures, there's more chance they'll be born as females. So with climate change, if our temperatures are rising, then we're going to get more female sea turtles, which can have problems in the future with our turtles trying to find mates. If there's too many ladies, not enough boys, then they're going to have trouble. Okay? So there are things that you guys can do to help support sea turtles in the wild. They include trying to reduce how much plastic you use, or making sure any plastic waste you do have gets recycled. And doesn't end up in the ocean, so things like beach cleans can also help. We can also do things like making sure the fish we eat is sustainably caught to reduce the chance of any bycatch. And lastly, you can share any cool facts that you have learned in this section with your family, with your friends, so that they can learn about sea turtles like Friday, they can engage more with the ocean and hopefully try and protect it. Now, one last little fact I would like to teach you is some sign language, or not sign language necessarily, dive language that people might use if they are diving and they have spotted a turtle and they want to tell their friends about it. So if you put one hand forward like this, take your other hand and pop them over the top of each other. Now, if you interconnect your fingers but leave your thumbs at the side free, and then you can wriggle your thumbs like that, like turtle flippers. Okay, so I hope you have enjoyed watching our session today, Meeting Friday, and a very big thank you to Katie for sharing her wonderful research with us. That is all from us here today, but we hope to see you again soon. Goodbye.
All right. A big shout out to Ocean Conservation Trust at the National Marine Aquarium in Plymouth. Thank you for that great video. And it's a timely video because, like I said, when you visit the Galapagos, if you jump into the water to snorkel or to dive, you will see a lot of green sea turtles. And with any luck, in fact, tonight I will be leaving for the Galapagos because next week we have a full session of events. We're going to be live every single day from the Galapagos. We sent it out in a newsletter. We'll send another newsletter over the weekend to remind everybody. And with any luck, we'll have a ton of really great underwater video with those green sea turtles. Now, the Marine Aquarium in Plymouth, if you enjoyed that kind of a video, you can book them for live lessons. So they shared a little video with me. If your class is interested in having your own special live lesson with the National Marine Aquarium in Plymouth, here's a little video that tells you how you could do that.
Our virtual experiences bring all of the excitement and wonder of the National Marine Aquarium right into your classrooms. You can join from wherever you are in the world and meet some of the 5,000 animals that live here. All of our 90-minute tours are national curriculum linked, and we can tailor them to meet your learning objectives.
For our younger audiences, we have a magical introduction to the underwater world. Your children could virtually meet one of our resident merpeople in their mer cave. They will get a chance to see some incredible ocean artifacts, such as shells and mermaids' purses, and share some weird and wonderful facts about our ocean friends, all before hearing an original story.
Wherever you are in the world, our virtual sessions will engage and inspire without ever having to leave the classroom.
All right, so a big shout out to our partners at the Ocean Conservation Trust. They've been so good to us with visits, live events, and video clips throughout the world's most exciting classroom. If you want a 90-minute event with your classroom, definitely reach out to oceanconservationtrust.org. Okay, let's set the stage. I just heard from the ship. We'll have Rodri joining us shortly. But before he does join us, I want to talk a little bit about marine iguanas to get us ready. And a little hint, some of the things we're going to learn might show up in the Kahoot quiz that we'll do in a little bit. So just really quickly here to set the stage, the Galapagos are part of South America. So here we have South America. Here is the equator running right across here. Ecuador is the country they are part of, but they are about 1,000 kilometers offshore. So you can see this tiny little group of islands. Again, we zoom in closer, and you can see the archipelago of the Galapagos. We have our hotspot here, our volcanic hotspot, and the islands slowly move to the east on this conveyor belt. The ship right now is anchored off San Cristobal, which is the second oldest island in the Galapagos. We want to talk about these guys today, the marine iguanas. Absolutely incredible. They have probably been in the islands for about 4.5 million years, these iguanas. How did they get to the islands? Because they formed in the middle of the ocean? Well, big storms on land would have swept trees and trunks and leaves and branches into the ocean. It would have also swept things like tortoises and lizards, iguanas and snakes into the ocean as well. They would have climbed on these floating rafts. And because they can go for a long time without food or water, they can drift on the ocean until they reach land, which would have been these newly formed islands in the Galapagos. Now, believe it or not, it was probably one species of lizard or iguana that made it to the Galapagos. And so this is actually a land iguana. So they look very different. They live on the land. You can see they have this beautiful yellow color. And they also eat different food. They eat these prickly pear cactus. You can see where they took a bite. These land iguanas took a bite from this prickly pear cactus. And so even though the marine iguana and the land iguana are very different, it would have been one species that arrived at the island millions of years ago. And then over hundreds of thousands, over millions of years, through evolution, through natural selection, we had these different species form. One adapted to feed in the ocean and live on the coast, and one adapted to live on the land and feed on plant material like these prickly pear cactuses. So back to our marine iguanas, they warm up in the sun to start the day. Their black skin, their black bodies absorb heat. Then they head into the ocean. They are the only species of lizard that swims in the ocean, that goes into the ocean, spends time in the ocean. The only one. and they're endemic to the Galapagos, which means they're found nowhere else in the world. You only find them in the Galapagos, and they're the only lizard species that goes into the ocean, that makes use of the ocean, and they're eating this stuff, this nice algae, this plant matter. So they can swim out, they can dive down 10, 20 meters, and they can eat the algae off the rocks, but they can't do that for very long. They are cold-blooded, so they get cold in the cold water, and they have to get back on shore and then sit and warm up in the sun. So you'll often find them sitting in plant like this near the beach and warming up, or you'll find them sitting in the sun with their eyes closed and they're just absorbing some of that sunlight. Then there's a problem with the food they eat. It's full of salt water. They can't have all that salt inside of their body. So what are they going to do? They're going to be sneezing that salt out of their body. So all day long, you hear them sneezing on the beach. They have a special gland in their nose, and they can sneeze that salt right out. These salty snot rockets all over each other on the rocks on the beach. And if you watch this little clip here, these two little photos, you can see all that salt coming out the nose and then going all over their pals there on the rocks. So they get that salt out through a gland in their nose. And then they're not always black, depending on the island you're visiting. Sometimes you can find them with these beautiful red colors, like this species here. I believe this is on Espanola, which is the oldest island in the Galapagos. And then you can even find them sometimes in the right season. They get this beautiful turquoise color that comes in there as well. So a little introduction to marine iguanas. Some of what I just talked about will appear on our Kahoot quiz shortly. And this is absolutely perfect timing because it looks like we have Rodri and his Darwin Leader joining us backstage. So let's bring the two of them in. Rodri, how you doing today?
Yeah, really good, Joe. How are you?
Good, good. Introduce your Darwin Leader to us. We haven't met yet.
Okay, so this is Manit.
Hey, nice to meet you.
The two of us have been working together this week filming marine iguanas here on San Cristobal in the Galapagos.
All right, Manit, it's great to meet you. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Monet, and I'm from Sammamish, Washington. So that's up in the Pacific Northwest of the United States. And back home, I work a lot on salmon orca conservation. I'm currently a high school senior. I'm 18 years old, and yeah, it's great to be here in the Galapagos.
All right, well, let's build on that. What has it been like in the Galapagos so far?
The weather has been very different from home, for sure. I think
hot, very hot, very sunny.
Very hot. And I think, the most exciting thing about being out here is all the wildlife that you don't see anywhere else in the world. Never did I think I'd be out here studying these marine iguanas, endemic to the Galapagos. That means, of course, that they only live here. So it's been very, very exciting. And it's not just the iguanas, the tortoises, sea lions, it's all really amazing.
All right. Well, take us into the project. Who were you working with? What have you gotten up to this week?
Yeah, so this week, again, we've been following around the marine iguanas around the coast of San Cristobal Island, one of the many islands in the Galapagos. So we've been working with quite a few different people in order to learn about these iguanas. Really, the angle that we've been focusing on this week is, first of all, learning about how changes in ocean patterns due to climate change have been affecting the iguanas' feeding patterns. So there's a phenomenon called El Nino that naturally occurs every 2 to 7 years. And during an El Nino season, essentially the cold water doesn't come up from the deep ocean like it usually does. So basically all the water on the surface is much warmer than it would usually be. So during these seasons, the marine iguanas find it much harder to feed because the algae that they eat doesn't do as well in warm water. So we've been looking a little into that issue, but we've also been looking into the more localized issue on the island of invasive predators. So here we've worked with quite a few different people. We've talked to a tour guide, a local tour guide, about how cats, dogs, rats are feeding on baby iguanas, and really, that's just another nail in the coffin of these iguanas, unfortunately, which are already vulnerable because of these increasing El Nino seasons. We've also, yesterday, we just went to a dog shelter up in the highlands of the island to learn about how they're taking these stray dogs and cats off the street to make sure that they're not a threat to these marine iguanas.
All right, very cool. I want to remind our classrooms tuning in, you can use the chat sidebar to send in some questions. We have a classroom backstage with some grade sixes I'm going to bring in just a moment for their questions. So you've been out in the field. What's today? Is today your editing day? You're going to start pulling some videos together?
Yeah, so today's the last day. We've got all of our footage, and we're going to put the film together today and show it to everyone, show it to all the partners. We've got some awesome footage. Really cool shots of iguanas swimming underwater and sitting on rocks and sneezing. It's going to be a good film, I reckon.
All right. Well, you sent me a little sneak peek, so we're going to play that now. I'm going to visit some classrooms right after that, and then we'll have our Kahoot together after some questions. So let me share some video, and let's see a little bit of what you guys captured this week. Feel free to, if you want to jump in and share anything with us, but we'll check out this video footage because it's absolutely amazing.
So apparently the some of the they have like these growths of like I think it's calcium on their head. They use that for fighting, all of the spines and stuff.
Yeah, we had a nice close-up sneeze shot there, getting some of that salt out of their bodies.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, these are the only marine lizards in the world, and that means that they have very special adaptations. You can see that their tail is a lot longer and flatter than other iguanas, because when they're swimming, they keep their arms and legs down by their sides, and they really just use their tail to swim around, so it's quite interesting.
So how long did you observe them in the water for? How long did they last on average before they had to come out and warm up?
Well, the ones that we saw, it wasn't especially deep where we were. So what would happen is like that the iguanas would be sat on a rock feeding on algae, and then a big wave would come and like wash them off the rock, and then they'd sort of swim closer to shore and like find a different rock and climb out on there. But this one, so you kind of had to be a bit quick, like following them, and yeah, it was quite challenging here, like swimming over the rocks. Like we were kind of getting washed around a bit, and yeah, it was quite a challenge, but really rewarding.
And it looks like they weren't bothered too much by you being nearby.
No, not at all. Not at all. Once they're in the water, they're totally happy.
Very, very cool. Now
But
I know.
I'll tell you what,
Go ahead, Roger.
They can swim really fast. Like, so you have to struggle to keep up with them sometimes. And we had a sea lion. We saw one swimming, and a sea lion chased one, and tried to sort of like bite onto its tail, and then it really took off then.
Very, very cool. Now I know on some of the islands they can get some red, even some turquoise on them. Predominantly, what did you see? Mostly black ones? Did you see any with a little bit of red?
Yeah, so as you can see in these videos, a lot of the ones that we saw were mainly black. There's definitely some red and green on them. It's thought that some of that is caused by eating the red and green algae, which is their primary diet. But yeah, the ones here were mainly black. Another part of that is I don't believe it's breeding season anymore. So I hear that some of these subspecies get brighter in color during the breeding season, but this was outside of that.
Yeah. I've also heard that when times are tough, that they can actually shrink a little bit, up to 20%. Did you hear anything about that from your conservation partners?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, earlier we were talking about these El Nino seasons where there's warmer water at the surface, and that means that the algae often dies off. So in order to adapt to these situations, because again, this happens regularly every 2 to 7 years, the marine iguanas have evolved to be able to even reabsorb their own bone matter. And that's how they shrink by up to 20%. Again, that's a fifth of their body size. It's a very large amount. But oftentimes, this isn't enough to keep them alive during the El Nino seasons. In fact, we learned that 10 to up to 90% of a marine iguana population can die off during an El Nino season. But even then, they've adapted to the situation and they can recover fully within just 4 years. Another interesting thing we found is that the marine iguanas by the town, rather than the beaches, tend to be a little bit smaller because, again, they've also adapted to having less algae to eat because of human influence.
All right. Well, it's absolutely incredible footage. I can't wait to see the 3 videos come together. I think it's going to be pretty special. So we do have classrooms joining us. I see from Sault Ste. Marie, we have Mr. Carota's class saying hi. Don't be shy to use the chat sidebar. Send us in some marine iguana questions. Let me bring in our grade 6s from Linwood. How are we doing today, grade 6s?
How are we doing, guys?
Good.
Awesome. Do we have any marine iguana questions today?
Oh, man, do we ever. All right, here's our first one.
Why do only marine iguanas swim in the ocean?
Okay. So why do they swim in the ocean?
Yeah, so marine iguanas, it's thought they evolved to swim in the ocean, again, to feed on these algae. And the reason for that is because it's thought when these iguanas first came adrift to the Galapagos Islands, probably floating on some wood or logs or something, there simply wasn't enough food on the island for these iguanas. So they had to adapt to eat these algae, which again only grow underwater. So in order to eat the algae, the marine iguanas had to learn to swim out, usually just along the coast. And then they eat their algae, and within an hour they come back because the water's too cold for them.
Okay, thank you. We got another one.
How long are those iguanas?
Yeah. So how big are they? How long are they?
Yeah, so it really depends on the island. The sizes vary quite a bit between the islands, but the largest ones can grow up to around a meter, sometimes a little longer than a meter. So quite large.
Wow. Okay. Any other questions? We had, yeah, Nancy, another one. Come on up. Okay, we'll take Enos first, and then you can, yeah. You come on up here, Enos, and just ask your question to the computer. Yep. Do you have it in your head still?
Yes.
Okay, could you ask the question?
How long do they have to? How long can they stay underwater till they can have to come up for air?
Yeah, so they can stay underwater for about up to an hour. The ones that we saw only stayed in for a couple of minutes because it was pretty shallow, but they can stay in for up to an hour.
Wow. Okay, and one last one. Okay.
Perfect.
Do they have predators?
Yeah, so they do have a few native predators, including snakes and hawks, the native Galapagos hawk. But unfortunately, these predators have also declined in population over the past few decades. So today, their main predators are introduced animals like cats and dogs and rats, and the iguanas just aren't adapted to defend themselves from these animals, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, grade sixes. Great questions. Okay. So yeah, that's sounds like you've had a great week. Sounds like you've got some great footage. You've got loads of work today, so we're not going to keep you much longer. Roger, do you think we can turn around and get a little ocean view?
Yeah.
Absorb a little sunlight, and then I guess I'll see you tomorrow.
Absolutely. So the sun is a wee bit cloudy today.
Yeah.
But you can see in the background there, that's we're on San Cristobal, but that's Punta Corolla Beach, which is where we did most of our filming with the iguanas. The rocks there are sort of covered in algae and stuff. And at the start of the day, you'd see them sat on the beach, warming up in the sun. And then about 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock is when they climb into the sea and start foraging for the algae.
All right. I have a question that just popped in here from Miss Coburn's class. They're wondering two things. What has been the best experience out filming with the marine iguana so far? And did you ever recognize one from day to day? Maybe one that you recognize from a mark or something?
Oh, well, no, I think the best experience so far has definitely been swimming with them. Like that was really special. Yeah, I mean it's so strange to see a lizard in the water. Well, that was awesome. And in terms of recognizing them, it was the same on the beach. It was the same sort of 3 or 4 individuals every day, and there was one actually like on the path. There was one on the path that was sort of sat in the same place every day, just sort of basking and chilling. But no, the ones here are kind of quite a dark color. They don't have any of the red or the green or the blue, so no sort of distinctive marks. But it was generally the same iguanas on the beach every day.
All right. Well, Rodri and Mana, thank you so much for a great little hangout today. I hope everything goes well with the editing. Maybe you can slip away and goof off a little bit today too. Maybe go back out to the beach or something. But thank you so much for being with us today.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you, Joe.
All right. Thanks, guys. Have fun today.
Cool. Cheers.
All right. So we are going to play a little marine iguana Kahoot now. I have one ready here backstage. I am going to bring it up onto the screen, and then we're going to play a little Kahoot together. There are I actually forget how many questions I did. I think I did 5 questions today. There are some true and false. There are some multiple choice. As always, you've got 20 seconds to answer the true and false, and 30 seconds to answer multiple choice. Let me share my screen. Let's play some Kahoot, and then we'll wrap up with our experiment. So here we go. Kahoot. Oops, that's the wrong file. There we go. Kahoot is loading on your screen now. You need to go to kahoot.it. So kahoot.it, and then your PIN number is 5494275. If you're in a classroom and you have something at your desk, you can join right there. If not, your teacher could bring this up at the front of the classroom and you could shout out your answers to him or her. If you're a student joining us from home, we have many students who join from home. Use that QR code. Use a phone, use a tablet, whatever you have handy, and you can scan that QR code. It will bring you right in. So 5494275 is our PIN for today, and it is kahoot.it where you want to put that PIN number. We have to catch up on our experiment after this. 2 weeks ago, we grew blue crystals. Let's see how those turned out. Then we also have a brand new experiment for today. Next week, like I mentioned, I will be in the Galapagos. I leave tonight. I should be there around lunchtime tomorrow. And then every day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we will be live in the Galapagos. We're going to go to the docks and the fish market where we'll see sea lions and pelicans and iguanas making their way through the city, sitting on the benches, trying to steal fish from the fishermen. It should be a lot of fun. We're going to visit Tortuga Bay, which is a beautiful beach with mangroves and marine iguanas. Sometimes there's flamingos in the lagoons in behind. We are going to visit the tortoises in the highlands. We're going to go up into the highlands and we'll see the giant tortoises. We will bring them live to your classrooms. We're going to visit some live events from the ship. We're also sailing to a beautiful place called Bartolome with a place called Pinnacle Rock. So that will be on the 8th, and that'll be our normal length world's most exciting classroom event as we're sailing towards that island. And hopefully we'll end the event with a beautiful view of Pinnacle Rock as we anchor at Bartolome. We have a lot coming up. We will end the week at the Charles Darwin Research Station, where they do a lot of great research and conservation work. Sarah Darwin, Charles Darwin's great-great-granddaughter, is going to be there as well. So she'll join us on Friday for our event from the research station. So as you can see, we are going to be live in places all over the Galapagos next week. I will share all of those dates again in a newsletter, and hopefully you'll be able to join us and either live or check out some of the recordings. So it looks like things have slowed down now. I think we can play some Kahoot. So here we go. Remember, the quicker you get the right answer, the more points you're going to get. But be careful because sometimes it could be a little tricky. So first question is true and false. Marine iguanas are endemic to the Galapagos. So is that true or is that false? Remember, endemic means they're found nowhere else in the world, just in one spot. Pandemic means they're found all over the world. So not just one spot. All right, good job, crew. They are endemic to the Galapagos. The only place you're going to find those marine iguanas is there. Happy Bobcat in first place. We have another true and false coming your way. Marine iguanas are one of 5 lizard species that swim in the ocean. True or false? Marine iguanas are one of 5 different lizards species that swim or use the ocean. Is that true or is that false? All right, good job, crew. We talked about that a few times. You will only find the marine iguana in the ocean. No other lizards have adapted to use the ocean in that way, to swim in the ocean and feed in the ocean. That puts the mystery impala in first place. If we go to our next question, it is a multiple choice. Marine iguanas get excess salt out of their bodies through do they get it out through their eyes, through their butt, through their nose, or through their mouth? So how do marine iguanas get that extra salt out of their body? Their eyes, their butt, their nose, or their mouth? Phew, did not fool many there. It is absolutely their nose. They have a special gland, and you'll hear them sneezing, sneezing, sneezing. That salty snot on each other all day long. but it's important because they can't have all that salt in their bodies. Ooh, the fast sea lion. We will see lots of sea lions in the Galapagos. It is a unique species there, the Galapagos sea lion, and they're the smallest of the sea lion species. But they are very playful and they're a lot of fun. So I think we'll see a lot of sea lions in our live events. I think they'll be around. Another true or false coming your way. Marine iguanas arrived in the Galapagos about 1 million years ago. Is that true or is that false? What did I say about the arrival of the marine iguanas? Was it about 1 million years ago or was it longer? Ooh, we were a little split there, but it is false. About 4.5 million years ago is when we believe that they arrived in the Galapagos. So about 4.5 million years ago, not 1 million years ago. We did not fool the fast sea lion, so we have one more question to go here. It is another multiple choice. If food is scarce, how much can marine iguanas shrink? Was it 10%, 20%, 30%, or 40%? So if there's not a lot of food, they can kind of digest some of their body parts, like some of their fat, some of their bone. They can use some of those minerals, use some of that material, so they shrink. Okay, good job, crew. 20%. They can shrink 1/5, about 20% of their body size. Let's take a look at our podium. In third place, we've got the Amazon shark. Very cool. In second, we've got the lovely hawk. And in first place, we've got the fast sea lion. All right, good job, crew. If your classroom contains the fast sea lion, I need you to send an email to classroom@darwin200.com. There you go. It's up there on the screen. Classroom@darwin200.com. This will be recorded on the Darwin 200 YouTube channel, also the Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants YouTube channel. So if you missed this email address or you want to rewatch anything, you can find the events there. Classroom@darwin200.com if you are in the class with the fast sea lion. Okay, let's put that screen share to an end and let us wrap up. Let us look at our experiments. So every week we have a brand new experiment. Then you have 2 weeks to try that experiment in the classroom or at home and send us your pictures. And sometimes we ask questions as well. So 2 weeks ago, we grew some crystals and we did that using copper. So we hopefully got some beautiful blue crystals. Let's take a look and let's see if we did get those beautiful blue crystals.
Welcome back, everyone. How did you get on growing your blue copper sulfate crystals? Well, I've had quite an exciting week watching these crystals grow. My crystals have got to about 2 to 3 centimeters in size. And if you remember, I actually grew 2 types of crystals. I used a seed crystal that consisted of just one crystal shape, and then another type that had lots of little different crystals as a cluster. And this is one of the clusters. And as you can see, the crystals have grown in lots of different angles, forming this really complicated structure. Those single crystals grew a bit like this, like a diamond shape. They're really pretty and beautiful. Do remember, copper sulfate is harmful if ingested, so be very careful if you're handling your crystals and make sure you wash your hands very carefully before eating anything. Well, I actually ran this experiment a few more times and grew all of these crystals here. And it's amazing to see the different shapes and sizes of each crystal cluster that grew. I also should mention one other thing. I actually had a strange result when I put the crystals dangling in my copper sulfate solution. Some of them just dissolved and disappeared completely. I'm not entirely sure why this happened. I think this might be because the solution of copper sulfate was simply too weak, so the crystals just dissolved and disappeared. If this happens, I found out quite a good solution to force your crystals to grow. What you can do is make a really concentrated copper sulfate solution and put it in a small little container such as this. If you put your seed crystal into this container and then put this in a warm place where the solution evaporates, it forces the crystals to grow. So if you didn't have much success growing your crystals in the solution of copper sulfate, try this other concentrated method. I had 100% success and all of my crystals grew. Let's have a look at this crystal here, and as you can see, this grew as a single large copper sulfate crystal. We'll put that out there to dry. The crystals are so beautiful when you look at them, but there is a little bit of a problem if you want to keep them. They will discolour in air, and also the humidity in the air will actually cause moisture to develop around your crystal, and it'll slowly become brittle and crumble. But a good way to protect your crystals is to paint them with a coating of clear nail polish. I'm going to do that here so I can keep my beautiful crystals for the future. All you have to do is very carefully just coat each crystal. Coat each crystal with a nice covering of clear nail varnish. Try and keep this as thinner coating as you can so they keep that beautiful shape, and make sure you get every single side of your crystal. And once it's fully covered, it's safe to handle, and also it should keep for many years, so you can keep it on your classroom as a reminder of your crystal growing experiment. There we go. I'll paint the others later. How did you get on? How many crystals did you grow and how big did they get? Let's look at the photos that have been sent in during the last 2 weeks. Thank you for taking part, and I hope you enjoyed growing your beautiful blue copper sulfate crystals.
So I should remind everybody that just because you can't do an experiment, maybe you can't do it that week, all of the experiments live on in a playlist on the Darwin200 YouTube channel. You can go back in time and you can try any of the experiments that we've done in the past. I think there's about 33, 34 experiments up there that you can try in your classrooms. You can try at home. Maybe you'll try some of them over the summer with your family. So you can always try those experiments. You don't have to do them in the 2 weeks. So we have a brand new experiment here I'm going to share with you right now. And then you'll have 2 weeks to try this experiment and send us your results. Here is the experiment looking at diffusion.
Welcome everyone. In today's experiment, we're going to investigate the process of diffusion. This is how in liquids and gases, high concentrations spread out quickly into low concentrations along the concentration gradient. You can run a really simple experiment to explore diffusion. What you need is a beaker of cold water, a beaker of hot water, and ideally potassium permanganate crystals, which you should have in your school laboratory, or if you don't have potassium permanganate, you can use food colouring if you prefer. Take 2 teaspoonfuls of the potassium permanganate crystals, or 2 drops of your food colouring if you prefer to use food colouring. Make sure you use exactly the same amount of crystals or food colouring drops, and then put them into the 2 beakers and watch what happens. You'll see as the potassium permanganate crystals dissolve, they turn this beautiful pinky purple colour. Can you notice a difference in the speed and spread of the coloration? Look really carefully. In my one here, I can see the hot water beaker is spreading much more rapidly than the cold water beaker. Within just a few seconds, the purple has spread all the way through the beaker of hot water, whereas look, in the beaker of cold water, the purple is only at the bottom. Your task from this experiment is to work out why there's a difference between the hot water and the cold water. What factors impact the rate of diffusion in these different solutions? Send in your answers to classroom@darwin200.com for a chance to win a £50 Amazon gift voucher prize. Good luck, and see you in 2 weeks to find out the answer.
Okay, nice easy experiment you can do at home, you can do in the classroom. You need some containers, you need some hot and cold water, and then you can use the material Stu suggested if you have it in your lab. But if you just have plain old food coloring, it'll work just as well. So 2 weeks, take some pictures, answer the question, why did it happen that way in the hot versus the cold? And you can send those answers to classroom@darwin200.com. So to wrap up today, we have to look at our curiosities. Last week, we had a special curiosity where we looked at 2 plant species, but Stu told us what they were, that they're air plants. However, his question was, why can these air plants survive without putting roots into the ground? Let's find out.
Back everyone. Last week, I asked you to try and work out how these air plants, known as Tillandsia, can survive growing on the branches and trunks of trees. They just have these little roots that really are used to anchor the plants in place. They don't have any connection to the ground and often can grow with no soil and no substrate at all. Well, could you find out the answer? They do this with an incredible adaptation on their leaves. If you look really closely, air plant leaves are almost silvery. Under a microscope, they have little structures called trichomes. These are scale-like structures that enable the air plants to absorb water really, really rapidly. So when it rains, the plants can get all the water they need and they can store it within their often succulent leaves. I can actually show you this by spraying these air plants. I'll give these ones a miss. If you look really carefully, those trichome structures absorb the water really efficiently, and the leaves then look a little bit more green. They also have an amazing way of collecting nutrients. Like many bromeliads, they have hollow leaf bases. And dirt and detritus and dust and leaf debris often rains down on these plants growing on the branches and trunks of trees. All of that detritus collects between the leaves and accumulates in those leaf bases. Then these amazing plants can absorb those nutrients directly through the bases of the leaves. So that's how these extraordinary air plants, growing right up on the branches and trunks of trees, can get enough water and nutrients to survive. Thank you for taking part in this Curiosity of the Week, and now let's find out who won this week's prize.
All right. And of course, we have to take a look at this week's curiosity. Let's load it up here. And let's take a look at it together before we say goodbye for today.
Back everyone. For this week's curiosity, I've got this strange object here. Look really carefully. It's attached to a branch. It's about 6-7 centimeters in diameter. It's round in shape and it's made out of a papery substance. What do you think this might belong to, or what could it be? Send in your best guesses to classroom@darwin200.com for a chance to win a £50 Amazon gift voucher prize. Join us next week to find out the answer. Good luck.
All right, classroom@darwin200.com. What do you think this week's curiosity is? If you missed it, the recording of the event will be on the Darwin 200 YouTube channel, as well as Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. There is also a separate playlist for all the experiments and all of the curiosities. You can always find them in the playlist. 1 week for the curiosity, 2 weeks for the experiment. Well, there we go. We are in the Galapagos. We will be live all next week with eight live events in total. 2 of them are in Spanish, and we're focusing on reaching students in the Galapagos so they can take part in the Darwin 200. And then 6 of those events will be in English and spread out in different places around Santa Cruz, Bartolome, and other places in the Galapagos. So we hope to see you joining us. The last thing we have to do today is a big shout out to our sponsors, to our supporters, without whom we wouldn't be doing the world's most exciting classroom. We wouldn't be sailing the Oosterschelde around the world and doing research and training young Darwin 200 leaders like Manit, who we met today. So let us take a look and thank our sponsors as we sign off for today.